night, what a night. Oh gosh, what a night. I feel good when you're wrapped up in my arms, dancing to a reggae song. Feel good, feel good. I feel good, cause your perfume isn't loud, and only I can talk about. Feel good, feel good.
Dagmar, say beautiful people. Thank you for tuning in to WDRB Media. You're listening to Goal Diggin with Dagmar, and I'm your host and the sponsor of today's show, Dagmar Demore, your Carolina's agent. Unlock your dream home with me, an award-winning realtor and author. Get the best buying, selling, and investment advice to find your dream property. Call 704-750-0088 or visit yourcarolinasagent.com. That's yourcarolinasagent.com, unlocking the home of your dreams. A few years ago, I published a book entitled The Complete Guide to Buying a Home. My goal in publishing the book was to provide a clear and understandable explanation of the home buying process. Whether you are buying your first home or purchasing your 10th investment property, the home buying process can be a daunting task. One of the essential components of the process is securing a mortgage loan. Here to talk about mortgage loans is my guest, mortgage lender Hulbert Glenn. Hulbert is a native of Charlotte who attended Garringer High School. He went on to Western Carolina University, where he received his bachelor's degree and Master of Art in Public Administration. Growing up in some of the worst parts of the city, Hulbert learned firsthand the need for and importance of bridging the gap in home ownership amongst minority communities. Hulbert's goal as a licensed mortgage lender is to reduce the disparity in home ownership rates between minorities and people of color. With a federal charter in each of the 50 states, a broker license in 14 of those jurisdictions, and a reputation as a top producer who consistently wins awards, Hulbert has funded many mortgage loans over the past 17 years and has aided thousands of homeowners in realizing their dream of homeownership. I welcome you and your expertise to Goal Diggin with Dagmar.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes. So we will dive into our discussion on mortgage lending when we return from this quick break. Welcome back to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, and those streaming live through free TuneIn Radio app and through iHeartRadio. You're listening to Goal Diggin with Dagmar, and I'm your host, Dagmar Demore. You can connect with me on Facebook as Dagmar Demore Realtor, on Instagram at Your Carolina's Agent, and on the web at yourcarolinasagent.com. If you're just tuning in, we're discussing mortgage loans with mortgage lender Hulbert Glenn. As we know, buying a home is a huge financial decision and can be a complex process. So, Hulbert, someone decides to buy a house and they have no idea where to start. What should they have lined up before they contact a mortgage lender, or is contacting a mortgage lender their first step?
Yeah, I mean, right now, particularly right now, during the season, it's tax season. So a lot of Americans are gathering their tax returns, gathering their W-2s. So typically, you want to go ahead and gather your income documentation. But more importantly, yeah, you certainly want to reach out to a licensed lender and really understand where you are from a credit perspective, but also understand what your buying power may be based on your income documents. So it's very important to go ahead and start gathering your pay stubs, your W-2s, any assets that you may have, any assets that may generate income, or any particular information that you do get income or verifiable income. But certainly you want to reach out to a lender and then kind of understand, okay, what do I qualify for? What is my max buying power? And so those are the things you want to start from the beginning.
Okay. And there are a lot of terms on online, and the internet just has so much information, and it's maybe difficult to narrow it down. So can you describe the differences in approvals after they've gathered all their documentation and they've reached out to you?
So certainly there's a pre-qualification process and a pre-approval process. Typically, the pre-qualification process, you've submitted your application. We've reviewed your credit scores. We've reviewed your income, and through the system, we're able to receive and approve eligible. That's a pre-qualification process. Now, people do pre-qualifications a little differently. The way I like to do them is I really want to make sure that we've got good credit information, your income information, and then be able to run it through our systems to get an approval. A pre-approval versus pre-qual is we're going to take it a step further. We're going to send it over to underwriting. We're going to let the underwriter review those documents and get confirmation of any question marks that we may have up front. So there's certainly the pre-qualification stage and the pre-approval stage. Um, we want to make sure that we do both, particularly if it's a complicated or it may be a complicated scenario and there may be question marks. You certainly want to get loan documents, the application reviewed by an underwriter, just to get a second opinion. We certainly don't want to waste no one's time in the home buying process. So we definitely want to make sure that we're crossing all T's and dotting all I's, and just making sure that everything is solid from the beginning. Once we issue that pre-approval letter is good for 90 days. And so we want to iron out all those details up front, which is very important to a realtor and all of the partners that are going to be involved.
Okay. Well, what are some of the misconceptions that you come across when people are trying to learn about financing a property?
Yeah, I mean, lots of misconceptions out there. I would say the number one misconception is you have to put down 20%. I think that might be the age-old thought. Well, I don't have any money for down payment. Well, there's a lot of different government programs as well as private sector programs that will allow down payment assistance. There's a few government programs that will allow 100% financing. And there's a number of down payment assistance programs that will help you with that 3%, 5%, or even 10%. So there are options out here for down payment. Other misconceptions might be I have to have an 800 credit score. Well, you don't have to have an 800 credit score. The credit score requirements, they range from as low as maybe 550 to as high as, of course, 740. But, your credit scores don't have to be excellent, but they certainly need to be in a situation where you haven't had any lates over the last 12 to 24 months. So those are so you have credit concerns, you have down payment concerns, and then typically there might just be concerns of just buyer's remorse.
What is that?
Buyer's remorse is when people are eligible to buy, but they're afraid to buy, and sometimes you have to just reach out to people, make sure that they understand the process to get them on board. So a lot of folks may have a concern of owning a home. They don't want to deal with certain things, as certain responsibilities as it relates to buying a home, and a lot of that's just educating the buyer. So. Certainly a number of different things that people have, these misconceptions, but that's why we're here today, is to kind of iron out some of those concerns and hopefully get people to become interested and reach out and allow us the opportunity to assist.
Okay, great. And be well informed. We have to stop for a quick break. Welcome back. You're listening to Goal Diggin with Dagmar, and I'm your host, Dagmar Demore, your Carolina's agent, unlocking the home of your dreams. If you're just tuning in, we're discussing mortgage loans with mortgage lender Hulbert Glenn. Hulbert, you explained that the first step in the home buying process is contacting your loan officer, gathering your documents and such. And you also explained the different types of approvals and shared some of the misconceptions people have about financing a property. Can you briefly explain the differences in the loan products that you offer?
Yeah, there's a number of programs available out here now. I would just start with some of the standard programs. You have your conventional program, which is a Fannie Mae product. Conventional loans typically require a minimum of 5% down or 3% down. You also have your FHA programs, which is going to be a little bit more lenient to the home buyer, but those programs require 3.5% down.
Okay.
You also have VA for your military veterans, and of course, that's a 100% product, as well as your USDA programs, which are going to be really in those rural areas or the areas that are outside the city limits.
Okay.
So those are the four main or the basic products. But then you have other programs such as construction lending. You have lot loan programs. You do have, again, the 100% financing options. There's also the adjustable rate mortgages that may satisfy clients based on a certain need. Um, and so there's a myriad of programs that
Hmm.
are available to the home buyer. It just really depends on their scenario, their situation. We always want to tailor the best
Okay.
product for that particular buyer.
Okay, that's great. What is the difference in, well, not the difference. Can you explain the importance of a buyer knowing what an APR is and the rate
Mhm.
is?
That's a very good question.
Hmm.
The APR is the annual percentage rate, and typically the way I communicate it to the clients is that is the that is the rate that calculates the finance charges associated with your transaction. It's also another indicator as to how well your rate is compared to other offers. So the APR really gives you an understanding as to the finance charges that are going to be financed over the term of the loan. Um, you have your interest rate, which, for example, today's rate, let's just say 5%. And so you have your note rate, which is what your loan is amortized based on. So you have principal and interest. That is your interest rate. But then the APR is going to factor in the closing fees and the additional charges that it takes to complete that loan. So that APR may be a little bit higher. But what I always tell clients is, okay, well, what's the APR? Because if we have the same interest rate as lenders are comparing rates, if the rates are the same, well, let's take a look at the APR because the APR may be higher, which will determine or confirm um, additional closing costs associated.
Hmm.
So again, it's a measure of how much closing fees you're being charged, um, but it's an indicator as to how much cost you're paying for that transaction. So
Okay.
interest rate, APR, again, annual percentage rate. That is a number that will be disclosed, should be disclosed on all loan estimates,
Hmm.
which is very important because you don't want to just have a rate, an interest rate, and not understand what the APR is.
Okay. And you have tons of experience and you have all of this knowledge. Do you explain this to each of your clients? How do you convey this? How do you make sure that they're comfortable
Mhm.
in this process?
Yeah, I mean, again, from day one, we try to be as transparent as possible. When we complete the application process, we want to get that borrower pre-approved. Once that borrower comes back with the contract, um, we want to make sure that we update the contract we want to update their application according to the details of the contract. But as we're discussing interest rate, as we're discussing their payment, um, you, it's by law, we have to disclose loan estimate summaries. And that loan
Hmm.
estimate summary is a compliance piece where we have to also disclose the APR. And so um, it's very important to make sure that you are taking your time with buyers because most buyers, they don't really know all of these terms and all of
Yes.
the jargon associated. So um, it's very critical to be able to communicate to your buyers and make sure they understand all T's and that you're crossing all T's and dotting all I's as it relates to making sure your clients really understand the terms and conditions of their loan. Um, and what I always like to do is ensure that I'm going over each document.
Mhm.
The disclosure process has increased tremendously over the last, I would say, decade. So the initial documents, there may be 30 to 40 pages
Mhm. Yes.
of compliance material.
Mhm.
And I always explain to borrowers, a lot of that is information that has to be disclosed, but may not be but may not pertain to your loan. However, it is important to know certain information.
Okay.
So the way things are set up is really to educate the borrowers, to make sure that the borrowers are informed, and really just make sure that the clients are comfortable before moving forward. So
Okay.
that is a relationship part of the process, and very critical to making home buyers comfortable
Yes.
and relaxed.
Great. That's great that you provide that transparency and that support to your customers. What are some things in your experience that can derail someone from getting to the closing table?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that I want to say those things don't happen a lot
Okay.
because
Good.
we don't want those things to happen a lot.
Mhm.
Mainly because we want to iron out all details up front and prepare customers for worst case scenario. However, you've got to maintain employment through closing.
Okay.
So there has been some scenarios where, and these scenarios don't happen often, but there's scenarios where if you quit your job in the middle of a process, that's gonna derail your closing.
Okay.
Um, it could be an appraisal concern or an appraisal issue, or it could be an inspection issue to where there might be some negotiations during the process, and the seller may agree that they don't want to make repairs, and so that could derail a process.
Okay.
Which I always recommend in those scenarios to make sure we get a home inspection up front. Make sure you've got a good realtor that can navigate that process and help you understand what that process looks like.
Me.
Absolutely. But yeah, so appraisal issues, loss of job, loss of employment, opening up new accounts.
Okay.
You certainly don't want to open up new accounts during your process because it could be a situation where your debt to income ratios are maybe tight, and you're ready to get those new couches, those new beds. And so what happens is lenders, we get monitoring alerts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we get alerts and we're like, you just did you open up an account here?
Okay.
And so typically they'll have to say, well, either yes, and then if they have, we've got to get copies of the new account statements confirming the payment, the balance, and then we have to add that to your liability. So certainly stay away from opening up new accounts because that could certainly derail your home buying process.
Okay, great. So because we are in Charlotte,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to briefly discuss some of the down payment assistance programs that are available to those in Charlotte.
Yeah. Charlotte, North Carolina, have a few different programs. I guess I'll just start from a North Carolina perspective.
Okay.
There's what's called North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. They will give you up to $8,000. I think there's an adjustment that's happening where they're speaking about moving that to $15,000.
That's wonderful.
So that's an option. And then locally, Mecklenburg County, there's two programs. House Charlotte has a $30,000 program. There's also another program within the Dream Key partnership. It's through CPLP, and that one is up to $50,000.
Wow. Okay.
So the requirements for those programs, they kind of vary, but there's certainly 38 to 40,000 in down payment assistance that you can get. Also, with my company, we have a grant program that we offer that's really up to $10,000.
Okay.
That we can also help with down payment. So there's a number of options we can look at. It just depends on the buyer, their income, and the program's requirements to make sure that we stay within those guidelines.
Okay, that's great. Because I don't want the lack of savings to deter anyone from their dream of purchasing a home. So we will stop for a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to learn a fun fact about you.
Okay. All right.
Welcome back. We're wrapping up our discussion on mortgage loans with mortgage lender Hulbert Glenn. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And as we know, people do business with people they like, know, and trust. So you're transparent on the lending process, right? So Share a quick fun fact about you.
Oh, okay. Well, a quick fun fact is I guess I'm a huge sports guy. Recently did a marathon
Oh, okay.
a few years ago, and I probably average about, I don't know, 70 to 80 miles a month in just walking and running.
Okay.
So I am a big runner,
Mm-hmm.
walker slash swimmer.
Okay.
So I'm all about overall health. Health is wealth.
Help yourself. I did an
um,
episode on that.
yep.
Yes.
And again, the marathon. Yeah, I mean, I did it under 6 hours, 5 hours,
That's
58
great.
minutes. So I was really excited about that. And my goal at that point in time was to outdo Al Roper. Al Roper, if anybody knows of him, he went through a triple bypass surgery at one point, and he ran the marathon, and I think he did it in like 7 hours. So,
Okay.
so my first marathon, I just wanted to outdo Al Roper.
Oh, goodness.
So I would say that's a little fun fact about me.
Any plans to run larger marathons?
Well, there's ultra marathon runners out there. I feel like I might do a marathon a month, but I just don't run it. I do a lot of walking.
Okay.
I do probably 80 to 90 miles a month. So I've done some half marathons. I do a lot of 5Ks, but that is the one thing that keeps me going.
That
So,
is great. That's
yeah.
great. So thank you again for sharing your expertise. For my listeners and viewers who are looking to get started in their home buying process, how can they contact you?
Yeah, they can certainly reach me directly, 704-842-4136, or they can send me an email to hulbert.glenn@usbank.com. That's HULBERT.GLENN@usbank.com.
Okay. And you are licensed in what states?
I am federally chartered to do business in all 50 states. I also have an individual license in 14 states, but with the organization and company that I work for, I can do business in all 50 states.
Okay,
That
great.
includes New York
Yes.
as well.
My home. Well, yes. So that's great. Thank you so much again. I'm grateful to everyone that tuned in, both locally and beyond. Don't hesitate to contact me if you need help finding a realtor in your listening area. Get the best buying, selling, and real estate investment advice. Visit yourcarolinasagent.com. Continue to tune in every Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Please remember to connect with me by going to goaldigginradio.com. Follow me on the socials at Goal Diggin Radio, including YouTube. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to be a guest on the show or want to learn more about advertising and sponsorship opportunities, email media@goaldigginradio.com. Shout outs to Visual Vibes Media for producing the audio and video for the show. You've been listening to Goal Diggin with Dagmar, and I'm your host, Dagmar Demore, your Carolina's agent. Unlocking the home of your dreams on WDRB Media, the voice of the community for double the information and inspiration. Until we speak
What
next
a night, what a night. Oh gosh, what a night. I feel good when you're wrapped up in my arms, dancing to a reggae song. Feel good, feel good. I feel